And here we go. It is that time once again, folks. It is time for the worst 120 minutes in all of sports. That's right. It is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I'm Mike, and as my background would indicate, I am celebrating the impending start of the baseball season. And for those of you over in the UK, like Sean, let me tell you, it is like cricket. It is like Test cricket, only longer and way more boring. Let's get ready for 162 games. And at the end of it, the Yankees are still going to win. So in that way, it's kind of like soccer. They play 90 minutes and Germans win, only this time they play 9 innings that could take up to 5.5 hours. And if it's a tie, it can go to extras. You know, you get those good. Stead, you ever been to an extra innings baseball game?
Yes, I have.
And the worst part about those is that they stop selling beer in the 7th inning. So you pray if it goes to extra innings, it only goes 10.
Yep.
Because if it gets into something where it's like 14, your last beer was 2.5 hours ago.
Yep.
And you started to go through all the stages of the hangover and it's not fun. But we love baseball. It
Absolutely
keeps us company over the summer. It is the one sign that's summer and warm weather. And if you live in the area where Stead and I do in the DMV, the 17-year cicadas are about to be upon us.
That's right. That's right. Yes. That'll be fun. All I can say is keep your dogs out of the backyard. From what I've heard about this, actually, I moved here the year before the cicadas came. Was that a year? No, I'm sorry. Couple of years before the last cicada round, and they are everywhere. And the saying was that you need to keep your dogs out of the backyard because it's the equivalent of having a backyard full of chicken McNuggets, and the dogs will go through and they will eat and eat and eat. And there's a great scene in one of the greatest documentaries ever, the original Planet Earth, narrated by Sir David Attenborough, where they show the animals gorging themselves on these cicadas. And there is a raccoon who has a bunch of them crawling right in front of him, and he cannot muster up the energy to put any more in his mouth because he is that full from all of the insects that he has consumed over the previous day and a half. And so this will be quite adventurous.
I have heard, though, that they are actually edible.
They are.
For humans.
They are. Now, absolutely. You can fry them up.
There are two things. There are the actual scientific proof that they are edible for humans. And then there was my mother-in-law, who once announced at a barbecue, if one more cicada flew by the grill while she was grilling, she was going to put it on there and barbecue it. To which everybody in the family came up with a plate and said, well, I don't know. I ain't never had a cicada, but if she put some ranch on it, I might try it. That just tells you how good my mother-in-law's cooking is.
Absolutely.
So, London Sean, how you feeling? We missed you last week.
Well, I woke up feeling very nauseous. I don't know if that was a post-COVID effect or not, but I wouldn't have been much fun. And it's been very depressing over here in England. We have managed to completely screw up the Six Nations, finishing 5th out of 6. We managed to completely screw up our entire cricket series against India, whether that was Tests, T50, T20. So it's not been great, really. And then I've just been listening to some podcasts with a review of our football season, that being Arsenal, of course. And we've had the worst season since about 1975. So it's been a little bit depressing. But then to counter that, lots of very joyful stories about we've just completed the anniversary of our first year in lockdown, which was about 6 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the country hasn't come to a complete standstill, which is good news. And we're looking forward to hopefully getting back on track, waiting for the pubs to open and the start of the Euros. You can keep your baseball. We'll take the Euros. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you I will be paying way more attention to the Euros.
Mm-hmm.
If it weren't for the fact that it was opening day and it is one of the few times that I get to dig these out of a bin. I had a very nice selection of international jerseys.
Did you?
I was going to throw some shade at the U.S. and put a Northern Ireland jersey up. I was going to throw a little bit of shade at Cam, who's coming on, and put a Switzerland jersey up because they just drew, and see if I could find some things to have some fun. But I definitely will be paying more attention to the Euros when they start. This is actually, and we will talk about this more as it comes. Stead, remember a couple of years ago when we said this was the best summer ever for soccer?
Yep.
And then we got this because we have CONCACAF's Nations League and the Gold Cup, I believe. CONMEBOL, Europa League, or European Euros, and the Africa Cup of Nations, all in one summer, which leads me to believe that of the possible World Cup teams, I believe that 27 of 32 will be playing in some form or fashion this summer. 27 of them, including the teams that we would believe in. We haven't even begun to make predictions as to who could win the World Cup, but I would venture to guess that the potential champion will be playing at some point this summer. So this summer is going to be, some summers are boring. This one's going to be great. Yes. But we have a ways to go until we get there. Yes, Sean.
Which teams are you going to be following? So who's going to be your major team in the Euro?
Well, let's see. I think I'm pretty covered as far as the Euro teams that I have jerseys for, which enables me to do my favorite thing, which is COVID dependent. Put a jersey on each day for a team, go out, watch, see who talks to me, and see if I can get all of the jerseys in before those teams get eliminated. So it's always a kind of a race against time for some of the smaller nations. Like, you got to get the Northern Ireland jersey out of the way very, very quickly because you don't anticipate them hanging around. But for a team like France, you feel like you could hang on to that one until a little bit later, until the knockout. But what happens if they don't make it and then you don't get to show that one during the Euros?
Oh, if France get knocked out early.
Huh?
If France get knocked out early, that'll be a shock, won't it?
Well, we'll talk about this a little bit later on when we talk about World Cup qualifiers. I know we're going to get to that later in the show, but they didn't look all that great against Ukraine in that first game. But for the other teams in the draw, not getting the win, you feel like that 1-0, that 1-1 draw for Ukraine in the Parc des Princes could come back and hurt them. I think it won't hurt France in their efforts to qualify for the World Cup. But man, picking up a point in France for the Ukraine, that's like having 4 points in the bag, right? You go in figuring that that's a game that you're going to lose. So that's 3 points that you're not going to get. Not only do you not lose the game, you pick up a point. That's gold for a team like the Ukraine, who's looking back to get back into the playoffs for the first time in a while. So that could be a big result for them. England, Sean, started off with a couple of minnows and did what they were supposed to do. And then for some strange reason, the soccer gods like you. You get Poland coming up without Robert Lewandowski.
I saw that he's injured. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. So, Poland without Robert Lewandowski, that could be 3 points right there for England if they can get it together.
Yeah. No, I think we're only quietly confident. Everyone is talking a lot about what his first team should look like and should be, and very interesting that over a season ago, so the start of the COVID season, Frank Lampard went to was he at Derby, or was he at Derby the season before that?
He was at Derby the season before that. He coached at Chelsea all of last season.
Okay, that's right. So if we go back 2 seasons then to his last season with Derby, he continually played a little trainee from Chelsea called Mason Mount, who helped them definitely get through to the playoff final with Derby against Villa that year. So here we are 2 years later with Mason Mount having appeared to have got rid of all his competition in midfield. And it's looking very likely that he'll start for England come June.
You know, the midfield position is one of the more interesting ones for England because that's just where you have a embarrassment of riches. Mm-hmm. And I think the starting midfield from 2 years ago, the last World Cup, not only is it not, would it struggle to get into the team today, I don't even think it's going to be on the plane.
No, you might be right. Yeah.
I think it'd be very hard to, I don't think there's a shot that Dele Alli gets in. Mm-hmm. You know, Jesse Lingard would have to have a massive renaissance at West Ham to see the side. You know, Jordan Henderson is iffy, but certainly, you know, with the likes of Declan Rice, Jack Grealish, Mason Mount, even a James Maddison, you know, just the competitions for spots in that midfield. Now, it is interesting, Sean, that he does not have a natural right back on this team. Mm-hmm. You know, I am a little bit surprised that there wasn't room in this particular team for either Trent Alexander-Arnold or Aaron Wan-Bissaka, neither of whom I feel are having bad enough seasons where you could say, okay, they don't need to be on the team. It would just surprise me if he went to a tournament and said, I'm just absolutely not going to take a right back. And there's still really not a left-footed winger. But, you know, the midfield's strong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you know, we've talked about this at different points in time. What is the attitude towards the English national team? Because I know Stead and I look at it and we're like, there's some quality in there. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a team that secretly we feel like could potentially challenge. But I know that y'all have a much different relationship with that team than we on this side of the pond do.
Yeah, I suppose, I grew up in an era where my parents, or my father in particular, saw us win the World Cup. He was actually at Wembley in 1966 doing his Congo. And I think particularly for that generation, that was obviously the peak of following England because we won the most major tournament there was to win in football. And the fervour behind the national team continued, I would say, up until 78 when we didn't make it for the Argentina World Cup. We didn't make it for one shortly after that. That was the Graham Taylor era. So I'd say from about the 90s, and we had a semi-final, didn't we, under mm-hmm. Bobby Robson, which was quite exciting. But certainly in the 21st century, the support for England has waned, I would say, definitely. And although you still get 80,000 people at Wembley to watch qualifiers or, you know, even friendly games, a lot of that is going to corporate hospitality. I would say the core England fan is not queuing outside Wembley, sort of, you know, waiting to get in. So it's a bit of a shame. It'll be very interesting to see what the viewing figures were because I think they were terrible. The viewing figures for England against the 2 games they've just played were about as good as Doncaster versus Rotherham on Sky TV or something ridiculous. So yeah, people, but young people want instant gratification. So I don't think that they can be bothered with all this qualifying bullshit. It's like, let's get in the tournament and see if we can win. And let's make it knockout and drink loads of beer and have fun. I'm not against that.
Instead, I don't know. I think for us as US fans, it's like qualification is the high point. A
It
lot of
is.
times that's where we actually look decent.
Absolutely.
For England, it's like it's just a prelude. They see it as like a prelude to a fail.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we're like, hey, this is time, we're gonna look decent.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna see some of these kids and we're gonna look like we actually have a competent team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we can feel like we actually might do something that we've never done before.
Yep.
And get out of the round of 16.
Yep.
We
And
know that's not what actually is going to happen.
It's true.
But let's enjoy this ride while it feels good. Because
Exactly.
we know
And
it's gonna
act like the game against Mexico never happens, because we love to ignore that game, because that hasn't been one that's been very positive in recent years.
Well,
It doesn't matter what, if we beat Mexico or if we lose to Mexico, we like to ignore Mexico games. We just ignore them, because you don't need to beat Mexico to get in. You just need to beat Honduras and Trinidad and Tobago. And so it Mexico, don't worry about that.
When we can score 4 or 5 goals, like where is Haiti when we need them?
Look, let me tell you something about Haiti. We better be, as far as soccer fans in the United States are concerned, we better be really glad that that country is having such a struggle with their regime and their ability to actually put together some sort of positive environment, because that is a country of absolute athletes. If they actually had the infrastructure and the money and the coaching, they could easily qualify, because you see games where Haiti plays in various tournaments, and all of a sudden they'll have a game against Canada or a game against Honduras or a game against Mexico, and they straight own the field. They may not win, but they own it. And you're looking at it going, if a country that is struggling as mightily as Haiti has been over the past 50 years, just imagine how good that nation could be if they were in a different circumstance. That's all I have to say about them, because you see,
I'll see you Haiti, and I'll raise you Jamaica.
Yeah, I mean, I put Haiti above Jamaica. I do. I
think Jamaica's way better than Haiti, simply because, remember, Jamaica made 2 straight Gold Cup finals.
Oh yeah,
they have proven players. They have tournament winners. The problem with them is that they so often stay so low seeded that in order for them, how like US, Costa Rica, and Mexico are the top 3 seeds. Jamaica normally ends up as like the 6.
Yeah.
So they're in like pot 3, right? So they have to go through a group that'll be like the US, Panama, and then Jamaica or Mexico and somebody else. And that's where they get done. Now, this time around,
but imagine if Haiti had just even the infrastructure of a Jamaica. They don't even have that. They don't.
Too. Cuba shows up every once in a while.
Yeah, but they're really good at something else. I mean, Cuba's mad that there's no more baseball in the Olympics, because they were owning that. Cuba's good at a lot of stuff.
Haiti, I remember in the last Gold Cup, the last time it was played, Haiti hung around for a little bit.
So, they did. Yeah. But as far as Cuba's concerned, if anybody's a fight fan, all I got to say is Yoel Romero. That tells you all you need to know about Cuba. I mean, talk about a guy in his mid 40s, looks like he's 25, and has the athleticism of a gazelle. That's a whole nother podcast, though. I'll call Bob about that one.
Well, yeah, we'll start that. Meanwhile, back in the other world, let's bring on our good friend Celtic Cam.
Cam.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Because still, oddly, Sean is going to be excited to see him. Number 1, number 2, Stead, you're very excited to see him, because
I am.
Put this final bow on what for Sean was a very disappointing Six Nations. What for me turned out to be a very interesting one. And Cam, man, Friday. All I got to say is Friday.
Unbelievable.
I know you and I were texting back and forth, watching it live. Stead, I know you saw it on the replay.
I still haven't seen it all. I've got it. I've seen the first little bit, but I'm still following. So I play spoiler. It's okay. I couldn't get on it, but I'm still gonna watch it no matter what you guys say. I'm still gonna watch it.
Cam, I like watching rugby. There are a lot of times where I still don't 100% know what I exactly am watching. What I do know was I knew what France needed to do to Scotland to win the Six Nations, however improbable it was going to be. I knew they needed all the bonus points and the point differential. And I'll tell you what, it became pretty clear to me very early in that game, with I would say within about the first 10 minutes, that it was not going to be the game that France anticipated it being. France got the early penalty, but then Scotland just loaded up with the try. Their defense was stout throughout. They played within themselves. They looked like they minimized their own mistakes, and they had a game plan to kind of get after some French errors. And I was surprised when they went up. They went in at halftime up, as I recall, and then there was that last, I don't know, last phase of the game, last couple of minutes, the injury time, and that try that to me looked like an absolute Hail Mary that was hauled in and taken over the line. And for the first time since they said, let's play rugby with a stone, Scotland has gone away and beaten England and France in the Six Nations.
Yeah, no, I think this year was definitely one of my favorite years in terms of the outlook for, I think, Scottish rugby. I mean, I don't think we lost a game by anything more than 3 points, 3 or 4 points.
Nope. No one had more than a penalty over Scotland. Nope.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, okay, beating Italy 52-10, that's, I feel like, unfortunately kind of on par. But the France and England game, I mean, even the Wales game, that was just so close. Ah, man, that one is the one thing this year that really stings me, that burns me a little bit. Just that final play. But no, the France game was by far one of the best I think I've ever seen. And I don't want to ruin too much of it, but
Go ahead and ruin it.
No, go ahead, ruin it. You see, I'm dialed in, man. I'm sitting like this.
Thank God for France being too damn proud to kick the ball out. I mean, and just trying to play on. Thank God for that, because as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, something's changing here. Something could happen here. And lo and behold, we did not figuratively and literally drop the ball. We were actually able to make something of that. So I will definitely rewatch that game within the next couple of weeks. Easy. One of the best games I've seen. Definitely the best game, I think, of the whole Six Nations.
Two questions for you, Cam. First is, does the winger Van der Merwe, does he come from Motherwell? Is he from Motherwell origin?
I'm actually not sure where he's from. I think it's a situation where he's got a Dutch parent and then a parent from Scotland, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. Because you're right. It's not exactly the most Scottish sounding name.
It doesn't do the Scottish trip off the tongue thing.
No.
And no. I noticed that a Hastings came on as substitute. Is that the son of one of the famous Hastings brothers or not? Or
I'm not sure. It might be. I would not be surprised. It's a strong, proud lineage in Scotland, so you never know.
Yeah. Okay, I might have to. I'll check that one out whilst you continue talking. That was it. Yeah. That was my bit.
I'd be interested to know. Yeah. But no, I think some of the standout players this year were Van der Merwe. I mean, easy. I think he had the most tries of all players in the competition this year. Hamish Watson looked unbelievable this year. It was fantastic. Just absolute monster of a player. Stuart Hogg. I mean, again, what that France game, Stuart Hogg, that card, I was like, you have to be kidding me. We lost.
Well,
we got red card and Stuart Hogg. I was like, great, it's the Scottish curse. It's back.
That was when I thought that they were done. And if you ever want to talk about something I like to call nominative determinism, a dude with the last name of Hogg who looks like that and plays rugby, like you had no choice in life.
Yeah, no choice. Yeah, no, you're playing rugby, dude. Sorry. If you were American, you'd be playing offensive line. So that's all you can do.
I mean, he was an absolute bruiser. and down there for them, and he was a key player. And to see the red card, I forgot when I was doing that he did pick up the red card, and it kind of felt like the 14 men of Scotland trying to hold off against the 15 men of France when they got that go ahead penalty or try. I didn't see it coming, but there was just something in that, watching that, how competitive they had been the whole entire game. They hadn't rolled over, how they were like, we know we can't win this, but we can still make a statement about where we are in the European pecking order as far as rugby. And they went out, and that was, I would say that would be probably one of the better games that I have seen them play, just simply for the resilience that they showed in converting that try after the game was over, for all purposes.
No, it really was. I mean, fine, we did get a little bit lucky with that France yellow card as well. As soon as that kind of leveled things out. And I think France's yellow card shocked them more than our red cards. I think that had a much bigger effect on them. We were still able to hold it together. The backs were still staying strong. I was surprised. I thought France got really, really shocked by that yellow card. And I think that really played a big impact on the mentality from that point on in the last 5 to 10 minutes.
So I will leave this up to both you and London, Sean. What have we learned about the Northern Hemisphere pecking order as far as rugby goes, as we get ready for another World Cup cycle to come? What do we think? We already know what New Zealand and Australia and South Africa have to offer, but where do you think what have we learned from this six nations in particular about the European or Northern Hemisphere sort of power rankings, if you had to do it, hierarchy for rugby? What do you think, Sean?
I think it's interesting that we're paying more attention, quite rightly, which we maybe haven't done in previous years, around the coaching. So in the same way that football always used to be looked at players, but now it's more about coaches and tactics. I think the same can be said of rugby at the minute. If the World Cup were being played this year, I don't think a Northern Hemisphere club would win it particularly, or I don't think a European team would win it. It's amazing how that table has almost turned on its head in the space of a year. Sorry, I'm talking about the Six Nations. There's no consistent winner of the Six Nations. If you look, most teams won 3, lost 2. England won 2, lost 3. So I think I'm still astonished that New Zealand didn't win the last Rugby World Cup, to be honest. But England put up an astonishing semi-final performance and couldn't replicate that in the final. And we got absolutely stuffed by South Africa, by a million miles, basically. So another English disappointment. But I don't see why Scotland or Wales, if they can avoid New Zealand in the draw, couldn't make a run towards the finals after the knockout stages start.
Yeah.
It's always interesting with how the draw works, because I remember in the last Rugby World Cup, you saw Scotland get drawn into the group with England, which seriously inhibited their chances of getting through. But then to go back to a point that you just brought up, where you talked about the coaching, had you come back to me early last year, especially after England's performance in the World Cup, okay, yeah, the final didn't exactly go the way that everybody thought it was. I remember talking to Stead about it and having England nailed on based on their performance in the semifinal over New Zealand, and thinking like, okay, yeah, I don't really know. The South Africa team just seems to be eking it out and somehow getting on and getting on and getting on. And then I don't think anybody foresaw the performance that South Africa was going to have in that
No,
final.
and we talked about that steamrolling that they took. We were both. I mean, I think I'd picked South Africa to win that game, but I was also expecting, as a rugby novice, expecting to be a lot more competitive. That was surprising.
Well, they also hadn't won a Rugby World Cup by more than like a point,
Right.
and then they absolutely demolished them.
Mm-hmm.
But the point I was trying to make, Sean, if you had told me before the Rugby World Cup that we'd be sitting here now talking about Eddie Jones's future as England coach, I think I'd laugh at you, especially off the credit that he had. But it tells you just how topsy-turvy this Six Nations can be. Even last year's tournament, England had a pretty decent showing, and Wales was abject. Actually, if you will, the most consistent team in the Six Nations over the last couple of years has actually been France.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I can get any one of you to put odds on France competing for the World Cup. But
well, that just totally depends on which French team turns up, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be the very, very good one or the really shite one.
Mm.
And unfortunately, it tends to be the really shite one that appears in the semi or the final of the World Cup when they get there. So, have they won it? They've won it once, haven't they? Have France won it?
I don't think France has won it. I'm not sure.
I don't know because I haven't really followed it long enough to know.
No, I think they've got through to 2 finals, but they've never quite managed to win it. Yeah.
But so.
Oh, and by the way, Cam, yeah, it's Adam Hastings, and he is the son of Gavin.
Really?
Mm.
Interesting.
No.
No, know that.
So the bloodlines run solid there.
Bloodline is very solid.
Yeah. Huh.
Cam, do you watch rugby sevens at all?
No, I used to play rugby sevens, but I never got too much into watching it. But
yeah,
I've seen a few games like the US men's, like they have like a rugby sevens league.
Yeah.
And I've watched that a few times. I mean, it's playing sevens is a whole different beast to rugby.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I got into the Olympic tournament, and that kid from Fiji who's playing for, I think he plays for Lyon in France. I mean, what a specimen he is. I think it's Joshua Tuivasa, I think that's his name.
Okay.
5'11", 256, quads the size of tree trunks. I mean, it was. I never saw so many guys look all like Cam Newton on one team at one time. It was absolutely amazing. So that was exciting because I thought it gave some smaller countries a chance to kind of shine a little bit. So that got me into sevens a little bit more. So I know there's a couple of tournaments coming up. So I was just wondering if it was something you
I was going to say, I feel a road trip coming on because there's always a big rugby sevens tournament up at Subaru Park in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's all,
yeah.
Cam's a Philly guy. I'm a Philly guy.
My sister lives in Philly. My mom's from Philly. Things
are open. We'll all head up I-95.
Yeah.
And go and take in the weekend of the rugby sevens. I've watched it. I think it's interesting that they played like 2 or 3 games in.
It's fast too. I mean, it's fast.
They also do the college tournament up there.
Yeah.
Which was
and the women's game for sevens is solid. It's very, very solid. They play at a very, very much. I feel like it's suited to their physical skill set much better. It's very exciting. The women's rugby sevens tournament, absolutely.
Much
exciting and terrifying.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, I was watching the Fiji Australia game, and they were straight hitting. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, like, I'll play any team, any men's team. I do not want to play you guys.
Yeah, they were rough. I mean, they were rough. I was like, this is a sport I can get behind. I like this.
Yeah. But we do also need to turn our attention to. This is actually to too many guys. Soccer show.
Oh, it is?
Oh, right.
We are 45 minutes into a soccer show, and we've spent about 2 minutes talking about soccer.
Yeah.
We probably should do that at some point.
Yeah, Mike has to prep me. Mike's like, Stead, we're talking rugby. Don't get too excited this week,
I did want to get your opinion, your thoughts on the beginning of Scotland's World Cup qualifying campaign, picking up the draw against was it Austria or Switzerland?
Austria. Yep.
Austria, picking up the draw against Austria, which again isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world to do, and then picking up another draw against Israel. What are the chances that Scotland can accomplish something that they haven't done since the 1600s and qualify for back-to-back tournaments?
I mean, so the good thing is next week we play the Faroe Islands, so hopefully we can eke out a win from that game. You know, undefeated so far in the competition, so go Scotland. But yeah, I think after Faroe Islands it's Denmark, I think is who we play after that, which I think that will be a big game. But I mean, overall, I'm really happy with the team so far. I think the team's really melding well together. We have a really good team this year. I think, you know, like Robertson, Tierney, McGinn, you know, O'Donnell's looking really good. You know, I think we have a pretty solid team this year. Not saying we're necessarily going to win it or go to the final, but hell, if we qualify, I will celebrate like we've won the World Cup. As you say, I don't remember the last time we made it to the World Cup. Sean, I don't know if you remember the last time Scotland made it.
I should do.
I think it was 98.
70. You've been in the World Cup since 78, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought it was early 90s. Maybe it was 98.
I think it was 98. Yeah, I think it was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
My father was that was in France, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
He was drinking in the Scottish bar the night that Scotland won.
Yeah.
Good place.
I'm sorry, the 98 Cup was one of the best World Cup tournaments I've ever seen was 98. But that one was awesome.
Yeah, so that's not too bad. 98, 2008, 2018. That's only, 23 years?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Not too long to wait.
Not great. Not great.
What we will agree on, Cam, this week is that Scotland obviously have the best left back in the world, without
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can get behind that for sure.
Well, the question then I was going to ask, are they actually playing a left back? Because they had been playing that 3 at the back thing, which meant that despite the fact that you had 2 of the best left backs in the world, you weren't actually playing either one of them at left back. And instead you were playing Scott McTominay as a center back, which to me is complete and utter tomfoolery. I understand that you have Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney, both of whom could play left back on just about any other team. But I'm sure that you figure out a way to ask one of them to play on the right and go back forward. But, you know, she persisted with Scott McTominay I didn't get a chance to watch either of the games this week. Did they go to a back 4? Did they start playing with either Robertson or Tierney or both of them?
Yeah.
Back 4?
I think, and I believe that for the Israel game, they did play a back 4. I believe they did use Robertson as a left back, and then they actually pushed Tierney up into the midfield.
Okay.
Which I think, personally, I think that makes a lot of sense. Tierney's always been he's been a left wing back. That's what he has been. He's always been that, and he plays that position beautifully. So I think him having that ability to have Robertson behind him and him be able to move between, you know, the Israel side and then come back to Scotland. He's got the stamina for that. So I thought that worked really well. Him and Robertson look to be meshing really well together, which is good because, you know, as we know, if we've got 2 people that are used to playing that same position and they're both stars, that can often have a negative effect. But no, I think Steve Clark is really doing some interesting things with the team. And he's actually, I think, changing up his formation and tactics purely, you know, based on the team they're playing, which I know it sounds obvious, but a lot of the time in the past, Scotland managers have not done that. Gordon Strachan used to his same formation, his same tactics. And I think his plan was to kind of just hammer it into them, get them so used to it that they couldn't screw it up. Whereas Steve Clark, I think, is being a lot more strategic with the players he's picking, depending on the team he's playing and the tactics he employs with that.
So you said that they have Denmark coming up after the Faroe Islands. We suspect that they'll be able to get past Faroe Islands pretty handily. And if they don't, then
knock on wood. It's Scotland.
Yes, I understand that it is Scotland. And if they don't get past the Faroe Islands, then I have to have a completely different conversation with you on Monday.
I will be crying.
Yeah, and that'll be tough.
That.
If they come out of these first 3 games of what is a very long World Cup cycle and one that is going to be interrupted by a Euros with the 5 points, how do you see their campaign moving forward? Do you think that that's a good enough start? If I had told you coming out of this that you'd come out with, you'd come out undefeated with 5 points after this first 3 game sort of burst, how would you have felt about that as a Scotland fan?
The way I kind of saw it going was, looking at the Austria team. To be honest, I didn't think we were going to win that. I was pretty happy with the tie. I was a little upset with the Israel game. I thought we were going to win that game. We won the last time we played Israel, and that was under Stephen Clark. So I thought we would have had a better chance with that. Faroe Islands, again, I'm not going to jinx anything. I'm expecting a win, but who knows what we'll get. And then in terms of Denmark, Denmark I would see as a tie. So if we're walking out, based on that, 5 points would be right on the money, I think, for what I was thinking. So, if we can get those 5 points and remain undefeated, I'll be happy with how Scotland have done. I think our team is, looking good this year. I think we're looking competitive. I'll put it that way, at least.
The 2 big teams in your group outside of yourselves are, arguably Austria, who has been overranked at times.
Mm-hmm.
Denmark, who has been overranked at times, but then you also got the Czech Republic.
They have Lord Bentner.
Yes.
Legend.
Legendary Lord Bentner.
Mm-hmm. Is he still playing?
I think he's playing second division somewhere. Yeah, I think so.
How old is he now? He's like mid-40s?
No, he's like, I think he's
31.
Mid-late 30s, I think.
No way.
Yeah.
But, it's an interesting group, though, because I guess Austria is the top seeded team in that group?
I think so, yeah.
But then the Czech Republic has always blown a little bit hot and cold. So has Denmark. Denmark would be probably, I guess, the pot 2 team in there because they've qualified for a couple of World Cups recently. But in certain respects, they are a lot like Scotland in the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a very interesting group that they find themselves in, and one that you either feel like it could go really, really well and you get out of it, or it could go really, really badly. And then we're having this conversation next year and we're like, what happened?
What the hell happened? Which is a conversation I've had many times coming out of the group.
I feel like that's a typical Scottish conversation.
It really is. It gets old very quickly.
So before we let you go, what do we...
Cam, just so you know, I'm sorry. Bentner's only 33 years old.
No way. Are you serious?
And I had to look him up. He's playing with a 4th division team that was newly promoted to the 4th division in Denmark.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah.
He's just living the life.
He's still playing for the Danish national team?
He was as of 2018, but he has stopped. Which is amazing. Wow. I'm sorry. That's amazing.
I think the only player that I can name on the Danish national team, and I may be wrong, is Kasper Dolberg. And the only reason I know him is because his name is Kasper.
Yeah, I think Schmeichel's playing for the Danish team too. Kasper Schmeichel.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so, Cam, as far as what should we watch for in Scottish football over the rest of the week before we get to Monday, we have the last qualifier against the Faroe Islands, and then we get on to the weekend with the return of Scottish football. I didn't get a chance to ask you about this because it happened so long ago, which was Celtic picking up a point in the Old Firm Derby. Congratulations on that. You've actually had a pretty good run over the last couple of weeks, and we haven't had you on to talk about it.
Yeah.
But what should we be on the lookout for as we for things in the Enchanted Land?
Oh, and Cam, was it you causing mayhem in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago when a certain team won a league title? I hear there was a bit of roughing up going on in Glasgow city centre.
Yeah, well, I will say I heard it went both ways. I heard
did it
very much so in both ways. Yeah,
okay.
There were some very unfortunate situation occurred. Little sectarian violence over that same weekend. But in terms of big news, so Bruni is leaving Celtic. He's accepting an assistant coaching / player position with Aberdeen with Stephen Glass. So that's what 14 or 15-year legacy right there coming to an end, which is mental. And then guess who's back to the favorites for new Celtic coach?
That's got to be Roy Keane, isn't it?
No, so he popped up,
Frankie.
as of this morning, it was Eddie Howe again.
Oh,
Eddie Howe was
I have
back up
told
there
you
again.
that I actually like that move.
yeah.
Me
I
too.
really think
I'm a
that
huge
that
mark for
would
Eddie
be
Howe.
a great move for Celtic. You get the feeling that there is a lot of Brendan Rodgers in potential in that sort of move. Although, and I feel as though he might even come a little bit cheaper than
I would
Brendan
think so.
Rodgers.
He's been out for a couple of years now, right? After he left Bournemouth, I think it was. You know,
Yeah, he
that
left after the
He
relegation.
left
Yeah,
Bournemouth at the end of last season.
yeah.
was the
So he
last.
hasn't managed all of this season. You know, he was at Bournemouth, which would mean that it wasn't like he was making top dollar in the first place. And he doesn't come with the same sort of pedigree insofar as, you know, Rodgers had coached in Europe, had competed for a Premier League title at Liverpool, where how his greatest accomplishment was getting Bournemouth close.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who has played with a shoestring budget, probably less to work with than Celtic has to work with on a given basis, and gotten more out of it. I just think that where it went wrong with him at Bournemouth was you can't keep perpetually giving away your best players and not getting anybody in and expect the manager to win.
Yeah.
I would really like that move for Celtic. I think that would be a good answer. I'm not 100% sure on the great. I'm never going to be 100% sold on the legacy of Stephen Gerrard. Like, I perpetually expect him to trip over himself and or get a red card, because you know what? That's what Stevie Gerrard does best.
Slippy G, as they call him.
So I like that. I think that that's good. I think that is the sort of move that works in everybody's favor.
Yeah.
It gives him a chance to get a managerial job where he's going to compete, and he's going to have more eyes on him than if he was taking over, say, Norwich.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, you have to, at the end of the day, I think for someone like him, like us as the fan base, have to look at it as a career move for him. You know, he's going to come, and I would expect him to be, if he does join, I think he'd be there for a couple of years. Hopefully he wouldn't leave in the same manner as Brendan Rodgers. But I would see him being there for not a very long period of time, kind of getting back on his feet for coaching, which, you know, I think we'd all have to kind of understand and be ready to accept that.
But I think even if you got him for 3 years and you got a good 3 years out of him, and he came up and he did the job that he's capable of doing, which would mean, to me, delivering back the SPL and another domestic treble and getting out of the group stages of whatever European competition that you happen to be in that year.
Yeah.
You know, I would think that he would need to be there for at least that amount of time, because he would need to prove that he can win in Europe to come back to the Premier League and take over another side like that. But again, if he leaves the club in better shape than he found it in, what more could you ask?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
I think it's hard as a outsider. It's hard to say, okay, you've got to be married to the club and this has got to be your ultimate job. Like, it doesn't work like that anymore. Like,
some people think that.
he's not going to live at the Huns forever.
Right.
So, well, my friend, we got to let you go, and we're going to move on and talk about some lower league football with Chelsea Mike. But it was good to see you, and let's go Scotland. I got to get a Scotland jersey before the Euros. That was one of the ones that I don't have. I need to find a Scotland jersey. I'll make that work so that we can go out and watch Scotland play. Well, thanks a lot, Cam, and we'll talk to you in another couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your
See you,
night.
Cam.
Hey, Cam.
Bye, guys.
So I don't know exactly where I fit into this next segment other than to introduce it and to use it as proof of how far we have to dig during an international league. Stead, Mike, you requested it, so I give you the floor to talk about lower division football.
Well, I mean, I'm a little disappointed you weren't taking in the important League Two match that was broadcast to us here in the United States, Bolton Wanderers and Forest Green.
When was that?
What?
When was that?
It was
Saturday.
last week. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday, there was this other thing going on called the NCAA tournament.
Boo.
I was watching that.
I don't recall what happened Saturday in the NCAA tournament. It's just a big black hole for me.
Yes, I understand that our beloved Villanova Wildcats lost, but they put up the good fight, and they made it to the Sweet 16, and they led Baylor at halftime, and without their best players. So let's just be proud of the boys for competing. Both teams played
I
hard.
actually watched that game, surprisingly.
I thought Villanova.
Mike, you'll be happy to hear that I was also closely following the Forest Green versus Bolton game on Saturday, mainly because Bolton have been in red hot form, as I'm sure you know, having done your homework, and they won their 4th league game on the trot, and I was on them at 6-4. So obviously I was banging and hoping and praying and keeping my fingers crossed for that Bolton win, who also happened to be the team of my best friend's wife. So I hear a lot about Bolton. So there's nothing wrong with following lower league football. Lower league football is great.
Hey, and Arsenal has had some bigger games against good old Leighton Orient in the FA Cup over the years. So that's always like, oh, we got Leighton again. I was like,
and our local team is only 8 miles up the road, and we are currently 8th in League Two with a hope of getting in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, I will say that when I was doing my research for this segment, I did pay attention to a couple of things. One was Exeter's position in League Two, because I know they're right up the road. And I did see that Bolton, despite all the financial troubles, was up in the playoff positions in League Two, looking like they're a good solid shot to get promoted. We had talked about, I was tracking Wigan because of our conversation from earlier this season, and it looks like they're going to get bought, but they're still looking like odds on to get to make the drop from League One to League Two, as are Sheffield Wednesday, who also took a massive points deduction at the beginning of the season, looking odds on to get relegated from the Championship to League One. At the top of the Championship, it reads like a cast off of yo-yo clubs from the Premier League, with the likes of Swansea and Norwich up there ready and raring to go back to the Premier League so that they can take another parachute payment after a year or two. But Mike, who or what should we be looking at in the state of lower league football? Before I hand it over to Stead to do this, because you clearly have more expertise on this than I do.
No, I don't.
Well, I mean, you take a look at Norwich, who look, I want to say they look better this time coming back up. They're almost a lock now with only 8 matches left, and they're I believe 14 points clear of the playoff. They look like they're coming back. I have a huge problem with teams that don't really try to go for it. Actually, Bolton Wanderers are a great example. Bolton Wanderers, I believe, came in 5th. Just like 15 years ago, and right now they're in a promotion playoff position in League Two. I mean,
As are
they're
Sunderland.
Sunderland
they're in League One.
Oh,
They're in
I'm
League
sorry,
One.
in League One,
Yeah.
but they're third in League One.
Yeah, that's
which is going to make the next couple of seasons of Sunderland till I die.
exactly.
interesting
That's
watch.
exactly what I was thinking. You stole my story, man. But yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, Mike, let's get back to you. You're in the middle of a point. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, but
It's
Norwich.
gonna be exciting though.
Norwich have the ostensible most valuable player in the championship with Emiliano Buendia, who's a right winger for them. Looks good. They also have a young back named Max Aarons, who was who played for them last year when they were up.
And they were able to keep Todd Cantwell, because I know the Wales were swimming around not just Max Aarons, but they were also, and I thought Cantwell played quite well as a Premier League player. I thought he was a little young. I thought he was a little skinny. I thought he needed to kind of beef up a little bit and maybe get a little bit more physical in the gym. But I thought he looked like a solid Premier League player. So I was surprised he didn't move, but I was not like, I didn't think that was a bad thing. And I actually have to agree with you. I think with the fact that they were able to keep some core players that they played with the last time they were up in the Premier League and then gave them another year in the championship to develop again, I would be, or they should be very disappointed if they yo-yo back to the championship again in 2 years' time or in a year's time. That would be really, really, really negative for that club, because I felt like if you're going to have the season that you had where you basically kind of gave it away because they didn't try and stay up, especially after the hot start they had with Pookie scoring all the goals he was scoring. If they can actually come up this time, though, they have to pull a leads. They have to try to make themselves, because they've had a number of seasons in the Premier League that they shouldn't be bouncing back and forth like this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. Pookie's the second leading scorer again. He just seems to find it in the championship. He's just that level player. I mean, again, my biggest criticism is that they're always trying to be the 21st best team in English football, which it's not a good look. I'm sure it's got to be frustrating for their supporters. But you're right. I mean, they should have some stuff to stay up, especially, one of Fulham, who may or may not have Ruben Loftus-Cheek next year. New Fulham, Newcastle, Brighton. Yeah, they're all two of them are still going to be around. So Norwich are a team to look out for. I might even hold off criticism, maybe even pull for them a little bit. But you got to fill in the gaps there.
Well, you brought up how Pookie's the second leading scorer. You're looking though at what's his name, Ivan Toney. And he's scoring at a blistering pace, and he's been a part of 37 goals this season, which is a lot. And Brentford couldn't stop scoring for a while there. I mean, they're kind of hitting a run of bad luck recently, but they were leading the championship for quite a while, and they're still in the playoff. But I think a team like a Brentford would be a good one to maybe win that championship, because that's not a team that's been in the Premier League, I'm not sure, ever.
No, I don't think they have been now.
So that would be exciting. I think that would be exciting. And that's a club that I would expect to bounce back down pretty quickly. But I've watched that. That's been the kind of the championship team that I've been watching the most of, I'd say. I think I've seen about 4 or 5 of their games this year. They play an exciting brand of football. They are very, very attack minded. They push, they press very high. They make a lot of mistakes. I'm not going to say they make some mistakes, because it seems like they have been in positions where they should win and close out games, and they just can't do it. But I applaud them going for it. I think it's exciting.
There's only one problem, Stead, though, for both us and for Mike.
Yeah,
that's another London derby, and that just makes it that little bit harder to win the league.
Right. That's another team that's going to step up for those games. They're going to go, this is a derby game. We got to step up. But if you want to see kind of a new boy get up there and try to, cut his teeth a little bit, I don't think Brentford's a bad club you want to see to win that championship. And the team I didn't want to see come back up was Watford. I didn't want to. I'm kind of done with them. I thought they kind of had their chance. Troy Deeney's about to retire anyway. Like, they just need to go.
They're on a tear,
and they're on a tear. They're on an absolute tear. So, but you talked about League One too, and you got Hull City trying to come back. I guess them being called Hull Tigers is finally like dead and buried. They're not going to do that anymore. And then, and then Sunderland in third place, and Sunderland's also in 4 of the last 5. They're playing really well. And you figure that there's one team that's in League One that should not be in League One. You would expect it would be a club like Sunderland, and they're
Portsmouth.
Yeah, yes, but Portsmouth really had. This is about 10 years ago. They had a whole lot of problems. I think they went into administration twice. I think it seemed that they just kept having to drop points and drop leagues. But it's good seeing though, them coming back up. It's good seeing Pompey getting playing somewhat competitively, and hopefully they can get out of League One as well. But I don't know. The documentary, the Sunderland Till I Die documentary, has pulled in a bunch of people who are pulling for that club now, especially over here. That's quite a popular documentary stateside. I think it would be good for them to start making their way back up, because if then they could call Netflix and go, hey, get back over here. We're going back up to the championship.
You know what? Actually, I know that the ownership and the new groups in there, they hated it.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Because the guy who owned the team at the start didn't like it either.
No, but here's what I'm saying. It's like, if you want to build yourself up, and like you said, they're 2 points off automatic promotion with a game in hand. They won the EFL trophy this year. You want to build a brand and have like an unlikely team that, I started liking Chelsea because they were the up and coming team. They were the team who hadn't won before. Or they had, but it was once, and it was a long time ago.
In the 40s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 55.
55.
But I think. But you have this documentary. You see the fans and their heartbreak. It's a compelling story. You build that in. Now you've got a fan base. There's money to be made there. And as you climb up the ladder, then you're the small minnow looking to take out the big guys. And I mean, everybody loves that story.
And it would be great for them to meet up with Newcastle in the championship to get that rivalry going again. I think that would be exciting.
Yeah.
I love how you just threw shade at Newcastle.
Is that a prediction?
Jump back in by saying I thought that Sunderland Till I Die could be the new version of Green Street Hooligans. And just create a new breed of fans for this team, albeit this time founded in some sort of actual reality, rather than Frodo trying to play a soccer hooligan, which was always going to be special. But, the documentary, like you said, Mike, it's a great opportunity. I know that the ownership might be a little bit leery of how they're portrayed, but it is also something that there is an endearing quality to it that is going to draw new fans in and give them a name recognition and international fan base that a lot of newly promoted Premier League teams don't have, let alone teams in the championship.
Right.
And you could go on, right now, Sunderland's one of the few lower division teams where if they had the money to actually do it and go on an international tour preseason and time permitted, they could do it, and they would actually draw really well, because people would feel this connection, or they might even feel like, hey, I might end up on TV.
Yeah.
Right. And and they're set up for success. The Stadium of Light is an impressive, beautiful venue.
It is it's underrated as a stadium, I think. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And they have a captive fan base. There's not much else up in Newcastle, Sunderland, that area to support. I mean, it's kind of that, and that's it. It's like Buffalo if only the Bills existed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think that would be the best parallel for a U.S. team would be like the Buffalo Bills.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anybody else. Can you?
I mean, yeah, kind of like the Steelers in Pittsburgh, maybe. Although they've got a good hockey
Steelers have
team.
enjoyed a whole lot of success, and there's also, there's still the Pirates and the Penguins.
The Pirates don't even try.
I mean, maybe you could. Now they've had too much. I was gonna say maybe you could say the Seahawks kind of being up and out of the way, but again, they've had a lot of
Maybe
success,
like
so I don't think you can really
Trailblazers?
equate that. And Seattle's a big town. It's a big city.
Portland Trailblazers?
Yeah, that's.
I'm thinking if they brought back the Quebec Nordiques, it would be a very similar situation. Nothing else going on. They've gone away, and now they're coming back.
The Quebec Nordiques wasn't only that there wasn't anything going on, but like Quebec City wasn't big enough itself to support the team, which is why they moved in the first place.
Yeah,
But it would need to be a town though that's had like the part of Sunderland Till I Die that draws you in is the economic hardships that's hit that town particularly hard. It's like them and Sheffield in a way of kind of like that's at least from our perspective over here. Those are the two towns we've seen from various documentaries that have taken that economic hit.
That's why I went right to Buffalo.
Yeah, having it be like a Rust Belt
post-industrial.
Yeah.
Post-industrial town, economic hardships in an area of a country that not a lot of people want to live in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That it's hard to attract athletes to because it's up and out of the way. It lacks the panache of a Portland. Quebec City, the weather's harsh up there, but there is a certain quaintness to French-speaking Canada that makes it endearing once you get up there.
Or what about the Green Bay Packers?
Green Bay Packers would be a good answer. The other one would be Utah Jazz.
Salt Lake. Is that in Salt Lake? No.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's got its own issues for an entirely different set of reasons. But
I'm looking at the League One table here, Mike. There's seven teams in that table that were in the Premiership in the last.
Absolutely, and
15 years.
And I think that's what's made League One a little bit more. I don't want to say exciting because I don't want to say it's not when that happens before, but it gave me more reason to pay attention to it. Seeing teams that have come up and beaten one of, at the time, was a Big Four team. Usually it was Arsenal, but it came up and stole a game. I still remember. I don't even remember who the guy was, but that whole City game against Arsenal, where they won 2-1 late in the game early in the season, and then I think after the 4 games, Hull was like in 4th place, something ridiculous like that, and they ended up finishing 17th that season.
I believe it was Charlie Adams' long throw-ins for Blackpool when they were up.
Yeah, the players leave is bugging me. I'm gonna try to remember who that guy is, but he hit a beautiful goal against Arsenal to close that game away. And then it also, the team that I hear about so much that never actually does anything is Milton Keynes. For some reason, there always seems to be there. Like, hey, pay attention to me. Like, okay, well, why? And the last I heard, I remember they were trying. I remember they signed Sol Campbell before he returned to Arsenal and asked Arsene Wenger if he could practice, and ended up starting a couple of games for them in the Premier League in his second go around. But it's kind of funny about Milton Keynes. I keep hearing about them, and yet they still can't get above League One.
There are those teams in the lower divisions that seem to occupy them permanently. You know, Sheffield Wednesday, because of Barnes, was one of the first teams that a lot of U.S. kids of our age
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
learned about. I've always had a soft spot for Sheffield Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It also helps that they're Sheffield Wednesday. Like, they are the only club that I know of in sports that has a day of the week in their name.
Mm-hmm.
But then Ipswich, Coventry,
Mm-hmm.
teams that perpetually occupy the lower divisions that
Yeah.
you know about, but never seem to move above the championship. And they just occupy this band in between the championship and League One. They're not
Yeah.
good enough to play Premier League football,
Mm-hmm.
but they're really, even with Sheffield Wednesday's financial problems, I don't think that they're going to drop below League One. I don't think that they're a threat to fall out of League Two, for instance.
Yeah.
In that rash of team, that's what the championship in League One is to me, is this hodgepodge of teams that we know about that can't seem to make it too much further than where they are right now, and failed Premier League teams who had Icarus syndrome. A little bit too
By
high.
the way, can I say Ipswich has a young Irish forward named Troy Parrott, who I've got my eye on.
Yeah,
I want to see. He's only 19, and I want to see what becomes of him.
Yeah, you and Los, because if I'm not mistaken, Troy Parrott is on loan from Spurs.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a loanee from Spurs.
Okay.
Right.
He's another one that Mourinho has totally ignored when he had a
Jose didn't feel like he needed a 6'3" Irishman on his team to back up his 6'3" Englishman.
Yeah.
And sent him out on loan to Ipswich.
Yeah, there is that block of teams though who, if they're in League One, they're going to finish in the top 12, and if they're in Championship, they're going to finish in the bottom 12. And they're just kind of always sort of there. And the only team that kind of comes up a little higher but never quite makes it is Millwall. Millwall will get to 7th or even 8th in the Championship, but they won't make the playoff. They won't get that far.
Sheffield Wednesday had a run where I think they made like 2 playoffs finals.
Yep.
Consecutive years and weren't able to get out of it. But we've said, that's the finances of the championship, where, the average, they're paying 120% of earnings on salary. It is just so impossible to make money and have a sustainable model that also allows for actual growth, right? Sean, I'll use Exeter as an example. They're a League One team right now, or are they League Two?
League Two.
League Two. They are going to perpetually be a League One, League Two team, because you can either try and buy them good, but the risk is that it doesn't happen for you. And the outlay is so great that you eventually it's a loss and you have to get rid of it, or kind of allow them to operate in the band that they are. Would it be nice if Exeter turned into a Premier League team? But, for the most part, I think that ship has sailed on teams that we feel like could be in that Norwich realm of even yo-yo clubs.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, if you look at Norwich has got the same population as Exeter. Roughly the same, about 150,000 in both cities. Exeter had to redefine themselves, and they were bought by their fans about 5 years ago. So they've been running under an administration that is fan based, and they've made some pretty cool decisions. So they put a very large chunk of money for a League Two team into redeveloping the training facilities, which are literally about 4 miles up the road by a local pub called the Cat and Fiddler. And it was a swamp. They used to train on a swamp, basically, on the opposite side of the road. And now there's 4G pitches. They put in about they put in about £1 million, which they got, ironically, from a very clever sell-on clause for Ollie Watkins. So they had a 20% sell-on clause when they sold him to Brentford, and then Brentford sold him to Villa for 30 million. So they got about £5 million in from that transfer. That £5 million is going to safeguard the club for the next 10 years, possibly. So they take the long-term view. Better to have a club in League Two that might be doing okay than chase the dream of trying to get Exeter up to a place where there's no way they could fill 80,000 people in a stadium in Exeter. I mean, the rugby team, who are champions, who were only, 2 miles away from where the football team is, stadium-wise, they've just increased their capacity, and the Southwest is better known for rugby now than it is for football, because we've got Bristol, Exeter doing well, Bath doing well. I think they're putting it up to 12,000 capacity, and that's the best team in rugby in the whole of England.
Again, that just tells you, like, you've got these cities that can't support multiple teams, and so you have to temper your ambitions as to what you want to try and do. And I applaud them. Take the long view. 'Tis better to be a solid League One, League Two side that knows that they're going to stay in the professional realm. And hey, who knows? You could have a good team season that ends up with a game at Wembley, then end up in the Northern Premier League outside of. And if the fandom is bent more towards rugby, let the fandom be bent more towards rugby. I think you hit the nail on the head with what we've been talking about is teams with the Icarus syndrome, chasing the dream, thinking like, not only can we go up to the Premier League, but we can win titles. Sometimes it works. Like, I wonder if I asked a Wigan fan, if I told you within 10 years that you're going to end up in administration and be in League One, would you still have wanted to win the FA Cup?
League Two, really. They're not looking good to stay up in League One.
Yeah.
But they have an FA Cup.
And that was one of the best FA Cup finals I've ever seen. That was an amazing game. Amazing game.
You know, would you have, as a Fulham fan, have traded the subsequent relegations for the appearance in the Europa League finals? Would you have traded at Pompey the administration for the FA Cup appearance?
I've got to. Can I answer that? I think if you're a Wigan fan, you would take that. You would take the FA Cup and League Two soccer, because what's the alternative? Constantly being a middling Premier League side, constantly fighting off relegation. Sure, you're in League Two now. You're on the verge of going to League Two.
Be in League Two. But the other thing is,
but they can't take the trophy out of the cabinet.
They can't take
it out. At the end of the day, that's what
out of the cabinet. And you know, at the time that happened, though, they had some of the most stable ownership.
Yeah.
Any team, like Dave Whelan did a great job with that team. You know, he just got.
And you got to give Roberto Martinez props for the way he was able to. You know, you didn't want to play Wigan in April. I know that. You did not. When he was coaching that team, you did not want to play Wigan in April.
So it was, Mike. It was great to reflect on.
We got to do this again, Mike. This was fun.
Yeah, again, but we've also got.
I think we should do we've got the summer. We can do a lower league recap.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
We haven't got the summer. We've got the Euro.
The summer, so I'm putting that one on the back burner for a little bit till the next international break. But if you want to stick around for a little bit, we have Rob coming on. We're going to talk a little bit about international World Cup qualifiers in the USA, and Coach G is lurking in the background, and we need to see what his hijinks are, because after last week he's got his square blocked off, so I know he's planning something. I just want to see what it is. So I'm ready. I'm ready this time.
Hey, Ma! Hey, Ma! I'm about to play on that computer thing. Hey, Ma! Me and my Budweiser about to talk about USA. Take my Chevy, man. Take my Chevy if you have to. Need some more Budweiser. I got to find my glasses. Got to talk about USA soccer, that round kickball thing. Here we go, man. Here we go, man. What's going on, y'all?
It would have been funnier if the butt hit you in the head.
Well, I was gonna throw my little mini bat, but I was afraid. Many hits in the head over here. I got my flag and all that stuff. Got a little homage to my grandfather. So my big fear was to break the glass and shit show over here.
Somebody should have tossed you a beer. Like, you need the Stone Cold Steve Austin that one time. But we don't waste beverages.
We do not, or any other substance. Yeah.
There was a
get my baseball hat on here.
This had to be years ago, and I was listening to a podcast, and they were telling a story of a Man United playing in Europe, and one of the guys was telling the story, and they said, and there were reports of Man United fans throwing beer bottles, and I know this was not true, because a proper Man United fan would never consider wasting a perfectly good beverage.
Unless it was empty.
And also, they drink from cans, not bottles.
Yes. Anyway, Rob, G, good to have you on. Before we turn to some international and European World Cup qualifiers, you both got your USA jerseys on. I was doing a baseball thing today, so I'm not wearing mine. Let's talk about the U.S. men's national team. A little bit of good, a little bit of bad, a little bit of ugly. We did not qualify for the Olympics. But on the positive side, I would say there were some pretty good showings this weekend against both Jamaica and Northern Ireland. So, Rob, I know you track this stuff like Davy Crockett. So give me your thoughts on it.
Oh, man. I mean, where do we begin? I mean, it just shows I have no life. No, look, man. All right, so let's get the bad and the ugly out of the way. So the U.S. U23 did not qualify, which is a tragedy in itself. No matter what the situation is, the U.S. needs to beat a team like Honduras. I'm sorry. And I know there's so many reasons or excuses, depending on how you want to look at it, but you got to beat Honduras. I mean, most of the time, the senior squad just does really well against them, even in Honduras, but this is almost inexcusable. It's a travesty. It sucks, but, at the end of the day, you have to look at it sort of in the silver lining. The silver lining is that there's a bunch of players who would have been eligible for this tournament if it wasn't that they were held up by the clubs, probably because they're very, very important to their clubs. We're talking about players like Serginho Dest. We're talking about players like Brendan Aronson, Yunus Musa, those Chris Richards, those players matter to their clubs. And I mean, I guess it's a good thing that they were held, because it's not a FIFA window for the U23 Olympic qualifying. And so you saw those players that I mentioned play in the international friendlies, and so a lot of people were saying, well, why, why didn't go to Guadalajara? Is because they matter. They're good. They can play. They play on their teams. They start, and so that's probably one of the most encouraging signs. But there's about 9 players that were part of the senior men's roster that could have been eligible for the U23s. Give me half of those, and they qualify. They may win the whole thing. I mean, that's how talented some of these youngsters are. So
9 guys on the roster who played, and that doesn't include the likes of Tim Weah, who couldn't travel.
Exactly. So,
and other guys who weren't called up for whatever reason, for instance, like Daryl DK wasn't on anything. But if you give me the form that he's in right now, I'd take him. Matthew
Yeah,
Hoppe wasn't on the roster, but I'd take him right now. You know, Rob, I came up with a list before I started. I stopped really caring about it. Serginho Dest, Richards, Mark McKenzie, Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams, Weah, Hoppe, and after a while, I just stopped caring. And that's about, so I got up into about 7 or 8 before I stopped. Yunus
Yeah.
Musa, Gio Reyna, technically Christian Pulisic, if you really wanted to pull it,
Yeah.
all of whom could have played for this U23 team but didn't. But the question I want to ask you is, given where our team is, our youth are now, versus where they were 12 years ago, when the streak of the U.S. men's national team not qualifying, it used to be, oh, we need them to go to the World Cup because they need to get experience playing in tournaments. They need to get in that tournament atmosphere. They're playing in the Gold Cup. They're playing consistently in Europe. They're playing in European games. You've got Serginho Dest, who regularly is practicing against Leo Messi. You've got Weston McKennie, who's regularly practicing against Cristiano Ronaldo. You've got Christian Pulisic, who, injuries aside, is an important member of Chelsea. All these players who are key members of their team. Can we view it as simply as to say, oh, yeah, I get it. It's a travesty. We should have, with our talent, beaten Honduras. But can we say, like, oh, this is going to retard USA soccer because the kids aren't going to have an opportunity? They're going to play in the CONCACAF Nations League. They're going to play in the Gold Cup. And when World Cup qualifying, which is the thing that actually matters, starts, they're going to have to do the thing where they play 3 games in about 7 days. Can we say, like, okay, I get it, but the Olympics aren't that important, and we should say, like, we will never be successful because this team didn't qualify for the Olympics?
No, I mean, look, that's very far fetched. But I will tell you that it's probably, look, the Gold Cup is the Gold Cup, right? I mean, there's a couple good teams on there, and every once in a while Jamaica will do something. But at the end of the day, like you're playing maybe 3. Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, you're playing maybe 3 meaningful matches, and the rest of them are just cakewalks, or they should be cakewalks. The Olympics was going to be an opportunity, potentially, to see some of the youth players like a Pulisic, an Adams, those players play in an international tournament with the upper rising stars of the world. And so the difference is that with the Olympics, the actual Olympics, it is a part of the FIFA window, and clubs have to release players. And so that would have happened. But I see your point, and I think that you have a point in that they are bigger fish to fry, and there is top quality in the youth ranks when it comes to the U.S. They're all playing. A lot of them are playing in Europe. Like, this is like unprecedented. A lot of them are playing Champions League minutes. They're starting for top level clubs. We have not seen this before, and this is like the beginning. They're only going to get better, and they're only going to rise up to bigger clubs.
Screaming for years to have our best young players go over to Europe to play, and then on the one occasion where they can't get back from Europe to play, we throw it, oh, this is awful, like, we can't go forward because we didn't qualify, because, well, our best players and our best young under 23 players right now are playing in Europe. Either they can't travel because it's outside of a FIFA window and the teams don't want to let them go, or, Rona's real. Certain countries have quarantine requirements and things like that. And they said, we would rather have this player here and say, you go to Mexico, come back, quarantine, do all of that sort of stuff, and we lose them for 2 months, right? Even a player like Weah, who wasn't on, could have gone, they were, nah, we kind of need him. And so, again, my personal feeling is we should take this failure to qualify with a grain of salt. And a lot of it is going to be dependent on how this team looks throughout qualifying. And then most importantly, when November 2022 rolls around and they show up, hopefully, to Qatar, and they have to play in meaningful games against other national teams.
Yeah, can they do it on a humid, rainy night in El Salvador? I mean, that's going to be the key, because Europe is Europe, right? But, CONCACAF and, those in those Central American countries is very, very different. The atmosphere is very rugged.
They haven't done this weekend, which is to win on a rainy night in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And I think this was the first time ever that we beat a British team or an English team or a home islands team, any one of the isles over there in that little sphere that you call home, Sean, that we beat them on their home soil.
Yep.
So what did you make of the performances? And this is where I'll bring G in. G, if you watched it, and even Stead, what did you make of the performance that we saw the last 2 games against Jamaica, which we said was one where we weren't going to learn much? I think I was more upset that they let in a goal than the fact that they scored 4. Go for it.
Baby.
Yeah, just before.
Yeah, baby.
Just
We
before
need,
you
we need,
get
we need
the-
more grits. If you can get more grits, that'd be fantastic. I appreciate it. While you're out with my Chevy, more grits. Thank you. Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool to see. We actually get a victory over in Europe and whatnot. But I got our A team going against Northern Ireland, and we win. Okay, let's say 2-0. We let that last goal in. Last couple minutes of the game and stuff like that. But who is Northern Ireland? I want to see against some of the bigger boys, see how we go against some of the bigger European teams, because that's ultimately who we will face if we go deeper into the World Cup and stuff like that. So then we have our first team, then we have our U23. There's a huge, split between them. Like, all right, we try to pride ourselves that we're a USA or, we're this big badass team. We should be down at all of our levels. So what does that say about our foundation then, about American soccer all throughout our different levels? I think it's kind of screwed up. And like you guys kind of hinted at, all of our talent's going over in Europe. They're not really staying here to develop this kind of homegrown national kind of league or sense. I think there's a huge drop off between to our first team and our younger squad. But let's give it a couple more years. Let's give it a couple more miles under their feet. Let's see what happens. But I think there's a big drop off between our first team and our youth squads.
Sean, what were you going to say?
I'm looking at a picture, I think just after Pulisic scored his penalty, and trying to replicate the England kit of 1984 is not the way forward for the USA to start winning any.
Okay, we can talk about Nike's sartorial decisions, which for national and domestic teams over the last couple of years have by and large been bad. And anybody who wants to understand what I'm talking about with their sartorial failings, please look up a picture of the proposed Barcelona alternate kit for next year, which is one of those ones where Nike got trapped in between 3 minds and all of them ended up looking stupid. But yes, replicating England's away kit. Now, whether or not the US is replicating England's away kit, or England is all of a sudden, because it looks like England are starting to replicate the US's kits, because we ostensibly do play in the same colors.
Oh, do we?
Now, and we have the same
that
kit
beautiful
design.
flag, that flag with all those stars on. You don't think you could make it slightly more exciting?
Sean, I am not going to lie. There is little difference to me in between the current USA white kit and the England white kit.
Yeah,
right?
And blue shorts.
Same thing. They're wearing like the exact same uniform because Nike got lazy one day and just said, "Hey, England, US, we used to be their colony. Why not give them the same uniform?"
True.
Or they had a warehouse in China with 10 million of them laying around. Like, we gotta get rid of them somehow. So let's kind of put them up as the new version.
Yeah,
So here you go.
Yeah.
for my money, Nike's been taking a break, but we can go with it. Again, though, gee, we get back to the same thing. Like at the last camp, and I think Rob will back me up on this. Greg Beerhalter was talking a lot about the fact how these guys were angling for moves to Europe. They saw that as the opportunity, and they were all very hyped about, yes, for that reason, money and exposure and quality, right? It was a logical step up. And I can't fault them, right? Athletes from around the world in hockey and basketball and baseball come to the US to play. I did not say football because we are like the only country in the world that plays football. So our football, so it's hard for us to expect like athletes from different places to come to the United States because they just don't play it. But basketball,
Bring on the Samoans.
football, or baseball, you know, they come to play for the Stanley Cup. They come to play for the Larry O'Brien Trophy. They come to play for the World Series trophy. The NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NBA, that is the cream of the crop.
America.
We need to accept the fact that MLS is not Major League Baseball. It's not the National Hockey League. It's not the NBA, right? That's for soccer, that's La Liga. That's the Premier League. That's Serie A. That's the Bundesliga, right? Why wouldn't you, if you are an athlete of that caliber who has the opportunity to go and prove yourself amongst that competition, do you really want to play for an MLS Cup, or is it that you want to be in the Champions League? I've never heard a young kid growing up saying, you know how when we all used to grow up and we were doing that turnaround Michael Jordan jump shot with pretending it was 3 seconds left to win the NBA title, or game 7 of the World Series, wanting to be Joe Carter and hit the World Series winning home run.
Or Alan Sunderland scoring in the 89th minute against Man U to win the FA
But
Cup.
I've never heard a kid say, there's 6 minutes left. I'm about to score the winning goal to win the US Open Cup.
Yeah.
Header.
You understand what I'm like? You know, you want to win that big-eared trophy. And if that's where that is at, why shouldn't we be encouraging our young kids to go over there? That's why I look at like the fact that so many of our important U23 players are over in Europe and weren't allowed to travel. I'm like, that's good. That's good. For the first time, we have a team. We have almost an entirely full team. Rob, how many players on the U.S. men's team that was playing over against are not European based? I know Leggett was one. I think there were only 2.
Let me double check. I think definitely Leggett's one, and Kellen Acosta was the other one, and Aaron Long as well. They were all based in the U.S. So I guess
23 are not European based, and 3 out of 23 who, let's be honest, are pretty easily replaceable with better and improved parts.
Well, Sebastian Leggett is different. You know, I mean, he's been in every camp that Greg Berhalter has called up in the last year or so. So yeah, clearly he loves him.
Guy.
He's Berhalter's guy. So you never, you know, he might plug him in the starting spot if he has the full roster. He might just do it.
Replacing Aaron Long or a Kellen Acosta with somebody who's actually, because Kellen Acosta's there, but Weston McKinney's not.
Oh yeah, no. You know, Aaron Long does not start in this roster, in the full roster. I'm sorry, neither does Kellen Acosta. Doesn't make the full roster. Let's be honest. I mean, you know, he had a nice trajectory, and then he you know had one bad year, and then he got shipped off to the Rapids, and then he's finally trying to get his wing back. I mean, his play back, but you know, at the end of the day, people pass him by, and he's looking at he's on the outside looking in.
So again, the original question is we talked a little bit about the failure to qualify. I might have ran roughshod over that one. I don't feel like it's a big deal. If there's any one of you, Sean, I don't feel like it's a big deal. Sean doesn't care. Stead, Rob, or G, if you feel like it is a big deal, please let me know.
No, it's not a big deal to me either, because when you have such a limited time frame to have a legitimate tournament, it's very difficult to hold it in any real regard, because you have to understand the reason why it is now something that's relatively important in the United States is because it's important to the women's team, and the American women win that tournament. It's an important women's tournament. It is not an important men's tournament. It's not. And what's going to be interesting is the fact that England and Great Britain have different sort of teams that they field. So when the Olympics was in London, they had this Great Britain team that was captained by Ryan Giggs, and there was no Scottish players on that team. No, there wasn't. He said he wasn't going to play at the last minute. I remember that because they had 5 Welsh players and every other player was England. And Scotland said, we're not going to put anybody on that team. That's what was reported.
There was a Northern Irish player. There was supposed to be one from.
There was supposed to be, yeah. There was supposed to be, but they weren't.
Dropped out.
Yes, that's Bellamy. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I remember hearing, because I remember watching that game, watching the first game of Great Britain playing. So then you're going, okay, wait a minute. The Great Britain is a team when it comes to like track and field, which I follow pretty closely. But when it comes to soccer, they have separated all the UK into their respective federations. So can England qualify to the Olympics as England for their women's team? No. So again, that's a little weird, but that's a big tournament for the women's game. It's not a big tournament for the men's game.
So by the way, Stead, you're absolutely correct. In the squad for the 2012 Great Britain team, there were 5 Welshmen.
5 Welshmen, and everybody else was English. That's right. Yeah.
But the only reason why there was, and I feel really bad stepping on Sean, who's actually English when I say this. The only reason why there was a Great British men's soccer team that year and a Great British women's soccer team that year was because the Olympic Confederation told them that they had to,
because they were the host country. They had to do it. Exactly.
They're not going to do that.
Right.
Taken the idea of the qualification because the host nation automatically qualifies for every event.
Right.
And they had taken that as optional, and they still weren't going to put one up until the Olympic Committee told them, you have to compete. Now, technically, England has qualified for the Olympics through the Women's World Cup, but they also did that 4 years ago and did not field a team.
Mm-hmm.
They have yet to say whether or not they're going to field a team for the Women's World Cup again. And because I wasn't thinking of this, I remember that I had the weird permutation for what it would have meant had it happened. After, in the immediate aftermath of that, I think I remembered what it meant. I think somehow it messes over France, but I'm not 100% sure.
We talked about that after the last one. We were speculating about that being an issue. Yeah. I don't know for sure, but it seems like France, because they didn't finish a certain spot, that they can't qualify for the Olympics or something like that. It was odd. It was very odd. But I feel like that reiterates my point. And it's that if that tournament is going to be put at the same level for the men than it is for the women, then the women have to change the format, because it's also, you're seeing limitations that even the women have to face, which isn't really fair considering that's a big tournament for women's soccer. So it's odd to me that it's odd to me that the level of importance placed on that tournament is so different. And
Why?
But you're shaking your head without. Let me finish my point. I agree with you that I don't think it's a bad thing that the U.S. didn't qualify because of the circumstances you laid out. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the MLS needs to understand that it is a league for development. It is a league for development. And it is a league for aging players to have one last hurrah and to get a footing in the U.S. market and get some good sponsorship deals to make a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm happy at the fact that it's just like you said, that there are young American players that are important to their clubs that are outside of the United States. That makes me smile because for years I've wanted our young players to develop in the best leagues in the world if they can. Who wouldn't want to? Why else do you see so many kids who live in other countries move to the United States when they're 16 and 17 to go to high school here? It's not like American high school is all that great, but they're here because of the basketball programs and playing AAU and getting into the NCAA and being able to play pro basketball here. It's the same thing. So there's nothing wrong with it. And the fact that those guys don't go back and play for their national team countries, we have to be okay with the fact that international success is not as important as individual success at the club level. We have to be okay with that.
Oh, I was shaking my head because you said something about the difference in between the importance on the Olympics for the men's team, the men's versus the women's. I was shaking my head because we actually know the answer for that.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like FIFA said they didn't want any competition.
Right.
World Cup.
Right.
And
we can't have two extraordinarily corrupt organizations dipping their hands in the same pot. So,
and at the time, they really genuinely did not care about women's soccer.
Right. And so they were like, sure, it's a go ahead.
As a full women's soccer tournament, whereas they didn't sanction it as a full men's tournament because they didn't want any competition for the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So we know the answer for that, whether it's right or wrong. But I will 100% agree with you that on MLS being a selling league and the whole nine about it, the kids going over to Europe. That has been what we have been screaming.
We've been barking about it, Mike. We've been doing this show for over 3 years. We've been barking about it the whole time. Yeah.
It just happened like this weekend.
It bit us in the ass this weekend. Yeah.
It bit us in the ass.
Yeah. G, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was a little pucker.
Just two things. My girl just came back. We're eating good tonight. We got some spam, some good old American spam going right now. So we got some spam and grits. Ooh, we're gonna be eating some good.
Actually, wait.
But I gotta focus
that
real
is
quick.
a pretty good meal.
That's a good say. Spam and grits is good.
Spam and grits.
You put a fried egg on it, man. I'm coming to your house, G.
I went to Hawaii and I'm like, oh, what is this spam crap? I actually kind of liked it. So it's all up in the islands and whatnot. But to get back to reality, I'm sorry about that. I gotta get out of the southern crap. But for the men, they had many tournaments in their club, their club teams, where women only really had the Olympics to actually play in to win something, where men are like, yeah, whatever, it's the Olympics, we really don't care, because the club prestige is so much more higher than the national prestige. The individual for the club, the individual for the one sub, I would say it's more prestigious for the guys than compared to the Olympics, where the Olympics and for the women is more of a current thing. That's all they truly had. It's the only thing they really had to look up to for these teams. So that's why I really do think that the men, whatever, it's not as important, where they might put their A- team, maybe their B+ team, knows what country it is, for that tournament. I don't think they're going to play their big boys to get hurt or whatever for their club teams. Club teams make more money for their, I guess you want to say, even for their national taxes and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think for the men, there's not a big pull for the Olympics.
It was until the Rio Olympics, it really wasn't a big deal. And then Brazil made it a national inquest to win the gold medal, because it was like the one thing in men's soccer that they had never won was the Olympic gold medal. And they sent out that team with like Neymar and Hulk, and they won it. Full credit to them. But it
penalties, by the way.
Yeah,
but wasn't this after they got their butts kicked by Germany?
No, it was the year before.
This year before.
Okay.
The year before, and they spent all that energy winning the gold medal, and then got spanked.
Crying, Neymar,
and haven't been back.
No, and another goal for Germany is the saying in Portuguese now. I don't know this. I don't know how to say it in Portuguese, but it's like Brazilian slang now. Another goal for Portugal, or another goal for Germany. Whenever something bad happens to you,
we're gonna have. I wanted to have my friend on to talk about Brazil soccer. He had other engagements, but we're gonna have him back on to talk about Brazil soccer because honestly, normally when I have guests on for a segment, like I know what questions to ask. I literally know so little about Brazilian soccer. Like I don't even know what question to ask other than to say like, can you explain this to me?
It's gonna say, yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, Mike, I was gonna text you. Just ask him how the whole thing works.
I think that
Soccer than God and religion.
telling me about it when we initially talked on Monday. He was telling me about like the relationships between the state championships and the national championships. And I tried. I got lost after about 5 minutes and had to conclude, yeah, it's Brazil. But and then like the Pele rule, which he says is destroying the lower level teams because they can't make any money anymore off of developing players, and it's weird. I like it is weird how that team can still be so fully functional and be as deficient in everything as they are. But again, the question that I've been asking for 20 minutes and still have not managed to get an answer to before we go out the door is what did we legitimately think from the team, from the games that we watched? Rob, please answer to get me off of this so that I can get a legit answer.
I enjoyed the performance of the U.S. I mean, you just see some good play, especially Serginho Dest, who.
That's what I wanted to say.
He's a right back, and he's playing the left back position primarily because the U.S. really doesn't have another left back besides Anthony Robinson, who is a little wishy-washy in the defense. But Serginho Dest looked like he's a man among boys in that squad. I mean, it was beautiful. He was dynamite. He's electric, and I'm so sad he didn't go to Bayern and he went to Barca. But no, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that. I liked them playing, trying out three in the back with the game against Northern Ireland. I actually really wish though that Chris Richards played the right side of the back three, but it is what it is. But you saw like the wing play between Pulisic and Reina. I mean, that is their spot. I mean, that they're starting. They're just that good. Josh Sargent, he was doing his thing. Yunus Musa is one of the players who I'm really looking forward to seeing more of, because I think he's one of the few players that can really take the ball and beat someone off the dribble and really cause havoc in the midfield. So overall, I think it was a good performance. They're friendlies, and people want to say, "Oh, it's Jamaica or Northern Ireland," but I'm sorry, the other great teams are not available because they have their own qualifying. So we have to take what we can get.
This was the first time that I have, in a long time, that I saw a U.S. team that fit together. And yes, there were some pieces missing that I'm still looking forward to seeing. Like, I dream of the day when I can see a Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie midfield, flanked by Pulisic and Gio Reyna. Like I want to see that, but like you said, the interplay between Pulisic and Reyna, the interplay between Dest, how they played together, how Musa looked like the center midfielder who could carry the ball forward, which would allow Tyler Adams to play more of the straight up number 6 holding midfielder, Weston McKennie to fill in that like box to box role where he's most comfortable. This is actually a team that threatens to fit together well in a way that they can be competitive even against sides in the last 16, the last 8, right? Like this team now has creativity that I haven't seen. Players who are playing in positions that complement their skill set that I haven't seen. Are we lacking in a couple of positions? Would I love to get Matthew Hoppe and all of his 6'3" as a target man? Yeah. But I actually feel a little bit good. G, what were you going to say?
Yeah, a lot of our top players are playing in the top, like you just said before, the top divisions. When you think about 10 years ago, our top players were playing the second, third, maybe fourth tier. So you see the evolution of these young studs having just ample time and how they're playing very European-like soccer. And I think that's what gives us an advantage by playing their system against them. We cannot play American style of soccer. We need to play a European style of soccer. And you see it right there.
What is American style soccer? I mean, I'm not
Dump and run.
Yep.
Dump and run.
Can
I say though, there's only one player though that for some reason I can't fully get behind yet. For some reason, Josh Sargent just makes me nervous. I think I probably I have to remind myself that he's only 21. But I think because he's been playing in the Bundesliga as long as he has, I kind of felt like he should be a little better than he is. And I really hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping it's just let's just give him a little more time, but he's been in Germany for a while now, and I'm still kind of like,
he got
I don't know,
a lot of hype.
Yeah,
he got a lot of
hype, and I think I bought into it because I was just so tired of Josie Altidore missing goals, and I just wanted someone else to be able to take his place. Because look, Josie Altidore has served the U.S. well, but I can recall too often times where he's had a goal face wide open in front of him and he kicks it over the goal or kicks it wide. So Mike, Mike, your face, that's it.
I'm gonna finish up this conversation like this because what I saw the last two games is what I wanted to see.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what my biggest fear is? That we're going to start bringing MLS players back in.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, just because I've got to deal with the likes of Josie Altidore again. Or players like that. I saw Brendan Aronson do his thing. Yes, he's a former MLS player, but he's over in Salzburg now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching these guys and I'm like, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
This is creative. This has the potential to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a fully finished article?
No.
But I also know that there are some guys who still aren't here.
Mm-hmm.
Who I like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I don't want is please, can we not go back to starting Giassi Zardes?
First touch, Giassi. Yeah. No.
Do I need to have Paul? Do I need to have Paul Areola on?
No.
Do I really need to have? Josie Altidore there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest. I liked our back line. I love Steve Birnbaum. I think he is a great defender. I don't want him on this team right now because I'm not sure what he does for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe he can take the plane instead of Matt Miazga because he could have gone and been Matt Miazga, but he wasn't. He's just about the only defender that I would like. No,
I don't want to see him either.
I just don't want.
I don't want to see him either.
Sudden, we have a 23-man roster, and I just have these nightmares of the powers that be.
Yep.
Sitting there and saying, "Well, you got to have 8 MLS players."
Yep. And then we see Josie Altidore in the 65th minute pull a hamstring.
Josie Altidore, Giassi Zardes, Sebastian Lletget.
Yep.
I don't think Josie Altidore is the he's not even like the fourth best striker, number 9 on the depth chart.
No,
as our dear friend,
and I'm not hating on him either. I'm not hating on him.
G,
Me neither.
as our dear
Yeah.
friend Uncle Leo would say, it's not that he's not the answer, he's not even the question.
And Rob, I will say this too, man. Yeah. Serginho Dest is good.
Mhm.
He's good.
Yes, he's
I mean, he's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
We need to make these young studs happy and stay on the
Yeah.
team.
He's
But
good.
they have been actually recruiting and getting players like it. They've been getting players like Yunus Musa. I was a little bit nervous about him, and I like him. I agree with you, Rob. I think he's being played out of position at Valencia. But when I saw him playing the central midfield for the US, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep that. All right. Man. Stead,
We did it again, Mike.
that one got away from me.
Yeah.
my bad.
There's so much I had to talk about that I didn't get to.
We
need to get to Europe,
European
man.
World Cup qualifying.
You know
Yeah,
what, though? I'm glad we didn't get to Europe, though, because we could squeeze in Europe next week when we get Matt back on, because I got to take some stabs at them losing to Luxembourg, good old Ireland. So, Matt's not going to feel good
And
about
we
that.
also got to get your friend on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping he would get on this week, but he lives in Cali, so he was unable to get back home in time. But yeah, he's got to come on, because I was really interested to hear what he had to say about the U.S. team, having trained with them a couple times. So,
Okay, so well, the other question is unintentional planning. We're actually doing the show. It's Easter Monday.
Is it next Monday?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm in. Well,
let
it's
me know.
Monday for us, it's
I'm in.
Tuesday for you.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be chasing the
All right,
Easter Bunny.
I don't know what shape I'm going to be in. I'm heading to Philly tomorrow.
Hmm.
I'll be up there for 3 days. I've not been back home in over a year. I'm going home.
Right on.
I have hotel reservations and bail money.
All right. That means everybody, block Mike's number this next 3 days.
Rippers and cocaine.
I have hotel money. I have a hotel, and my buddy is on standby with bail money. It's gonna be one of those weeks.
I've lost my mobile, Mike. Just to forewarn you.
Nah, hey, don't worry about it. There was that time though when Chelsea, Mike, and I went out to watch the Eagles win the Super Bowl, and I thought that I left my phone in his house when we went out, and then found it a couple of days later and realized I didn't leave my phone because there were videos on it. Like, yeah, those
Hangover.
the light of day.
Yeah.
I thought I was smarter, but I wasn't. Anyway, big shouts out to Celtic Cam for coming on, talking a little bit of Scottish football and Six Nations. Thank you to Chelsea Mike, talking a little bit of lower league football and indulging Stead. He's my co-host every once in a while. I gotta help him out. It's like a marriage. Every once in a while, you just got to do something for your partner, even though you know you don't want to do it. And you may nope out from it. That is the only reason why this relationship has lasted as long as it does. Thank you, Bayern Rob, Coach G, coming on in your USA kits and repping and talking a little bit of the USA soccer. Of course, my man from across the pond. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm gonna share a little something with you this morning. Sorry, this evening with you. So as I have been doing a lot of research over this Euro 2000s, because my feeling was before the season started that due to the fact that we were trying to cram so many games into everyone's league championships, that the team that might win the Euros would be one of the fresher teams, I would say. So when I say fresher, I mean a country that plays fewer games, that would have fewer teams going through to the final stages of the European competitions. And it finally, the light has finally emerged this weekend. So the outsider to get to the final of the Euro 2020 is Turkey, who are currently 50-1 in the betting. So I just wanted to get this on record 8 weeks or 6 weeks before the tournament starts. Turkey are the dark horse.
They finished third before in the World Cup.
I had a lot of fun with them back in the Euros, I guess, in 2008 when they forgot that they were supposed to lose some games. I know I need to get a Scotland jersey because I got to go out and watch games with Celtic Cam. I know you're that said.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you got a Turkey jersey?
Turkey jersey.
Yeah.
Good.
I used to have one. Maybe I need to get one.
They got some nice jerseys. That's some of the red ones. Those are nice. I like those.
I've had one before. I do have a Galatasaray shirt somewhere back here, but actually I have a Harry Kuehl Galatasaray shirt.
See?
I need to get rid of that.
Yeah, you do. Burn it.
Yes.
And we'll find out from the very early doors because the opening game of the tournament is Turkey versus Italy, and there will be a shock there. There will be.
See, this goes back to what I was saying before. This would be a very
big game.
Good game to have a Turkey jersey on because you anticipate Italy going through. And I have 2 Italy jerseys. But if I'm playing the game correctly, I would need to wear the Turkey jersey for that. But the problem is, if you're wearing the Turkey jersey, that's a Muslim country. You can't drink in a Turkey jersey. That just seems mildly inappropriate.
You not drink on a Friday?
No, I just feel bad when I drink wearing a Turkey jersey because that's a Muslim country.
Do you have a North Macedonia jersey?
No, I do have an Albania jersey, though.
Oh, well, they're not in the finals, then.
I said I think I'm at about 16 of the 28 teams, or 24 teams.
Okay.
So, Stead, it's been real, my friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did all right this week. Trying to do better next week. Happy opening day. I believe opening day for baseball should be a national holiday. We're not going to follow it the rest of the 6 months that baseball's fun, but give us opening day. Like, just give us opening day. Like, NCAA tournament Thursday and Friday and opening day of baseball need to be national holidays. Can we cancel finally Columbus Day? And it's not because I have any beef with Christopher Columbus. Like, I'm not trying to cancel Christopher Columbus and things. I just feel like that's an impractical holiday. We need to put our national holidays on days where they actually matter, right? Like when we're not working. NCAA tournament Thursday and Friday and opening day of baseball are days where we're not actually planning to work. And Super Bowl Monday, right? Those are days where we are not planning to work. So I'm going to need us to cancel a couple of national holidays and structure them around. Like, I, as a veteran, am even willing to sacrifice my Veterans Day to the cause.
So you really are going for Turkey if you want Christopher Columbus. All right, put a bet down. Turkey, got it. Turkey, $100. Cool, got it.
All right. Anyway, that's my rant for this evening. We did all right this week. We'll get better next week. This has been the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I'm Mike. Thanks to Stead, Bayern Rob, Coach G, London Sean, Chelsea Mike, and Celtic Cam for making this thing possible. Talk to you next week. Peace.